All right, everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where I find you. It is 11:01 by my watch in Chicago, so it's time to begin. Thank you for attending this PowerCast, Insite Analytics, browser-based business intelligence, and BRMS Dashboards by Mike Stegman and Stacy Jensen of HelpSystems. My name is Ian Cartwright, and I'm Education Manager for Common, and I appear on your screen as webcast host. If you experience any technical issues during the presentation, you can send me a chat message using a dialog box, which is at the bottom right of the screen. Select to send to webcast host. If you'd like to send a written question to Mike and Stacy during the presentation, for that you're going to use the Q&A area, also in the lower right section of the screen, and select to send to all panelists. The presenters will answer your question at the end of the presentation as time permits. Stacy is first to speak, and Stacy is going to introduce herself and Mike. Stacy, go ahead.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Perhaps before we get started on introductions, I'll just speak briefly about what we're going to talk about today. So, finding a solution to help improve data access, reporting, and business intelligence can be daunting as there's so much out there. What we've heard from the IBM community is that they want a solution that can not only empower users with a visual representation of the key information they need, but also a solution that has the capability to improve IT operations by providing IT ops teams with a better grasp of their operational data, whether it's HelpSystems solutions or products outside of HelpSystems like BRMS. What we want to share with you today is how with Insite Analytics, you can quickly and easily gather information from all sorts of sources and present that real-time information in dashboards through a browser, helping your IT department to make complex data really more accessible, understandable, usable, which should help your organization make better and more informed decisions. So as Ian said, I'm Stacy Jensen. I'm the sales manager for the Business Intelligence Division here at HelpSystems. I have been working with our business intelligence and reporting solutions since 1998. I'm going to kick off the webinar very quickly and hand it off to Mike Stegman. Mike is our Senior Data Access Consultant for the Business Intelligence Division. He's been with HelpSystems for over 16 years and has worked on the IBM I since its inception in 1988. Mike, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Stacy. Thanks for having me here, and hopefully we'll get some good information to our attendees today.
Great. So you're right. We do have a lot of good information to share today, so I'm going to hand things over to you. But before I do, we have a few polling questions that we would like our attendees to answer. So Ian?
There they are.
Looks like he brought those up. Yep. So the first one is, where does your data reside? And you've got IBM I, MS SQL or MySQL, Oracle or Postgres or other. Second question, do you currently use BRMS for backup and recovery? And then the last question is, if you are a HelpSystems customer, do you use Insite today? So we're going to share a little bit about Insite today. So if you don't, you're going to get some good information on Insite. But if you could let us know whether you're using it or not, that would be great.
Yeah, sounds good. It's always good to know your audience, and we like to know, who we're talking to here, and we have a lot going on here, so good information, feedback from us. We appreciate everybody taking a moment or two to click a few boxes.
I think you got about 3 seconds. Right? Okay, so interesting. We've got the results here. IBM I, GB2, 100%, which is kind of interesting. Nobody's doing anything outside of the IBM I that's with us today. So currently using your BRMS for backup and recovery, 75%, 25% no. That's interesting. And if you're a HelpSystems customer, using Insite. So we've got somebody out there that's got Insite installed and up and running. So that's great.
Yeah, beautiful. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to do that. We'll go ahead and continue on now. Here are the topics that I'll be touching on today during the presentation. What is Insite? How it can save IT some time. Building a query within Insite Analytics, and visualizing and sharing the information. And I'll wrap it up with a brief demo of Insight and Insite Analytics. So what is Insight? Insight is where it all comes together, as you see here. Insight integrates your entire HelpSystems product experience, applications, updates, licenses, and more into a digital hub so they can get more done without putting more in. Streamline your HelpSystem product updates with the deployment manager. It simplifies product licensing. There's an enterprise licensing piece for the HelpSystems customers, and it centralizes key metrics. So we had some HelpSystems customers out there, so I wanted to make sure that we touch on what is Insight at kind of its base level. Insight is our single pane of glass to access many of our products. It provides browser interface to some that didn't have anything before, and provides a way to bring information from several systems, including third-party business data or HelpSystems operations data, things like that. It brings it all together into one tool. The Insight administrator can control who has access and which databases they can access through Insite Analytics. And Insite Analytics, as you see here, is a piece inside Insight, right? Insight is the tool that starts off installing on your Windows, Linux, or Power Linux systems. It interfaces with a lot of different databases, and the administrator controls who can get in, which users can get in, and where they can go, right? Very important these days to limiting user access. The data connections, talk about these and show these in the demo as well. We'll talk about the different data connections. Now, it said everybody on the session today, seeing it's coming from Common, it makes perfect sense that everybody today has their data on the IBM I. Okay, but we can reach out to other databases. The list you see here and some of their logos, so you can get third-party data and bring it into a query and then to a dashboard. Okay, and whether you want the IT or business users or both to build queries over your databases, you can set up Insite Analytics this way. Access to the data, building queries, creating new columns, new column fields in the I world. They're columns, right? Filters, sharing it either with display only or with edit capabilities. So you have that capabilities within the query designer. And here's what a quick query would look like inside the design tool, right? And we'll see this in the upcoming demo. This is a relatively simple query. It has two files joined at the top. You see custom asset and head up there, and selected about 9 or so columns or fields, right? And this wizard mode is easy to build the query. It guides you through. If you have more than one table, of course, you do your joins or your linking, right? You have your filtering. If you're familiar with SQL statement, that'd be your where clause. Your grouping, if you're going to group anything together, if you're going to present something in summary type information. And then the queries can be shared with users or groups for editing or simply for display to be placed on a dashboard. Now we're starting to get into some really cool stuff here. Is the once you've built and saved some of your queries, they'll be available to be included on a dashboard, right, for display. Dashboards, again, can be private or shared with other users or other groups. You can add data. You can have them as graphs, as indicators, including highlighting. There's a lot you can do within a dashboard to make it more user-friendly. And that's where I think the real cool stuff is within Insite Analytics. Is to get into the presentation. And here's an example, right? This one's, again, relatively simple. A couple of tabular queries, a couple of graphs shown here. And these may be different views over the same data, or they could be from different data sources. You saw our data sources, our data connections. We have a blue background here, which happens to be showing some PowerTech data, right, included with some business type data. We have order information accounts receivable, amount due type information, as well as I threw in a PowerTech one in there just to show that you can do multiple things on one dashboard. You have different chart types that are available, and different filters that can be used when you're placing information from the query onto a dashboard. And if you set it up in the query, you can also do drill down from aggregate data. Another example here of a dashboard. This one's combining network security and authority broker assets into one dashboard. So you see how you have that ability as well. A couple of bar charts going vertically and one going horizontally. And then you have one just doing some key indicators, if you will, with robot schedule in the lower right. All right, that was a quick fly through the PowerPoint. So now I'm going to go into a brief demonstration, okay? And we'll show Insight briefly, show Insite Analytics, we'll build a query, build a dashboard, look at some other dashboards that are out there, and then we'll be all set to go. So that being said, got to make sure I click on the right stuff. Stacy, are you seeing my sign-on screen here for Insight?
Yeah, we're seeing your screen fine.
Okay,
I am.
perfect.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. All right, this is the logon screen for Insight, right? I mentioned it installs on a Windows server, a Linux server, or Power Linux, right? This one's installed on a Windows server, most likely a virtual machine up in corporate office in Minnesota. And when it's installed, you decide how it's going to be authenticated. We happen to have chosen this one. It's going to be authenticated with the IBM I, a system called Wisdom. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click log on. Then I have my defaults for my profile set to take me into the Insite Analytics queries area. But before we go into there, I do want to talk a little bit about some of the other features of Insite Analytics. Okay, I think we said we had a couple people out there who were HelpSystems customers. So you can get Insight right now. It comes with your HelpSystems product licensing, and this is the list of the current products that are in Insight. So if you have any of these products out here, Robot Schedule, for example, Robot Console, right, Intermapper, Automate, you can come into those individual areas and see some information about those tools. Right now, the two parts of Insight that are that I think are the most useful are the Deployment Manager and Insight Analytics. So we'll start off real quickly into the Deployment Manager. So this is the area for those HelpSystems customers where you can set up and you can control your various HelpSystems products. Okay, so you can see from the first list I have here, I have the various systems that are made known to Insight. Right, there's just a list of them here. Some are the actual names, some are just longer names, and it tells how many of the HelpSystems products are installed, and then which ones have staged product updates waiting to go, and any have expiring licenses. Now, this is a part that's a lot of our customers are finding fairly useful. It lists all of our HelpSystems products, and it's broken down into three areas: products with available updates. If I scroll down, up-to-date products, and if I go any further, any other HelpSystems products that you don't have currently licensed but are known to Insight out there, right? So you can have all of that. You'll notice on this products with available updates, there's these little red dots up in the upper corners, right? Some have one, some have two, some have four, right? That tells us how many systems are behind or current with that. So if I come over here, just a quick look, I'll come over here to the PowerTech network security. There's two systems out over here, right? I can click on the view installed, and it's going to show me that there are two that are in red, Doc and Dopey, that are behind. In this case, it's one version. Academy and Wisdom are current, they're green. Okay, so I can close that out. And then you have some actions from here. I can do an install, staged, right? That was that previous screen I showed where there are some stages. And if you do need to deal with any product licensing, you can do with that here as well. You can get a product overview. So you have some actions that are available to you, and you can do your updates right from here. So as an IT person, do a staged install, meaning it goes out to our website, downloads the information, gets it ready to go, and then when you're ready, you can run the install over on the eye. So this can be a pretty powerful piece in this area. Okay, and I'm going to swap out of the deployment manager because not everybody was a HelpSystems customer here. Now I'm going to come and we're going to take a quick look at some dashboards. Okay, so again, come back over here. I'm going to jump up to the dashboard section. Just want to show you some of the things that you can do, kind of the backing into it, if you will. So this one was not created by me, so I went to a shared area, and then there's a line here at the top, a box where I can put in the name or partial name. So I'm just going to put in the letters up here. There we go. And it takes me to the one I want to go to. Click on it. Now it's opening. So this is just one example. This is business type data, right? This is over some SQL data warehouse type data, but again, it doesn't have to be warehouse or metadata. So I have all that information. Anytime you have multiple pieces like this chart down over here, you see if I hover over the expected margin, it becomes highlighted. If I hover over gross margin, you see where my mouse is here in the middle portion. I can also click on that and it'll temporarily remove from the chart entirely. Same thing with the pie chart, right? As you hover over, you can see the numbers behind it. I can click on a piece and it'll disappear or reappear in the chart as you see fit. So it allows you to kind of see data a little bit differently. And then we have the margins down over here with some highlighting. So if they're low or good, you know, depending on the thresholds that are set, we can see some information. So this is just one example of a dashboard. Now there were some BRMS users out there, right? So we have pre-built some BRMS dashboards, right? And I've copied them into a folder for myself. I happen to name BRMS Dashboards. Huh, pretty unique name, right? Okay, we have one called Backups and Networks. For now, I'm just going to run this one called Network. Okay, there are 3 systems that I've identified, 2 Insight and Insite Analytics that have BRMS out there: Domino, HS18, and Sparrow. And you can see information about this. So I have my network health out over here showing the ID and whether or not they're communicating, the release level. You can see they're not all on the same release level, and the PTFs. I can see my expired media list. And I can see that down over here. And at any time you have a chart like this or a list of information, you can enlarge it just with the button. And then here's my chart for the expired media count. If I fly over it with my mouse, you see Domino has 6 expired media, HS18 has 6, and Sparrow has 5. And again, the same type of thing. For those customers who have a lot of BRMS connections, you might want to eliminate a high one or a low one to kind of see a better look at some things. You can do that again with the clicks. And this is just one example. We get the backups one as well for the talks about any active backups, any success or failures, those types of things. So you get that backups. All right. Now I'm going to jump into Insite Analytics. So inside the Insight product, right? Again, these are all the different HelpSystems products in here. There's a tool called Insite Analytics. Okay, I'm going to jump right into the query area. The home is nice. It does show you some statistics about which systems and which data connections and which users are doing the most work within Insight. But I'm going to jump right into the query area. Now this is a list of queries. Again, not all of them I have created. Some I have not. You can see over on the right side if they've been shared with me, or if it's blank, that means I created it. Okay, so there's a whole list of them out here. I can search off a keyword, or there are ways to put tags out with your query so I can find my list a little bit easier. So I can click on these to modify them, and from there I can download them into a CSV, which of course opens in Excel if you needed to. All right, but I'm going to start a new one. I'm going to click on this Add button. Now you'll notice there is a down arrow next to Add. That's specific for our BRMS users. You can see the list of BRMS queries that are out here. again, we're not going to get too heavy into BRMS, and you can't modify those queries anyway, but just to know that they're there, you can easily copy them if you need to make tweaks to them. All right, so I clicked on the add. Now you see I'm in this new query area. I think of this as the header area. So now what I'm going to do is to give my query a name, right? I'm going to call it sample 1, then a description. Put that information out here, and then the data connections. I talked about the data connections before, right? All those different types, and that's available. Those are made over in this data connections area. Right? So I have a whole list of data connections that have been made. Some of these are SQL Server. There's Excel. There's DB2. Right, a whole list of them. I want to choose mine. It's off of Wisdom, and it's my own one. It's called Mike's. Okay. Here's the area where you can put some tags and any caching, which users or groups have editing and sharing rights, right? This is where you do the sharing and the allow editing. So I'm just going to leave it just for me, and I'm going to click on the edit query. Then it takes me into the design wizard. I had a screenshot of this. Of course, it was all filled in the PowerPoint. But let's go ahead and create one, right? First thing you need to do when you're querying something, of course, is tell it where's the data coming from. So I click on the add table at the top. And since I'm in Wisdom Mike's, it's making its connection out to that system. And what'll come up on there is a list of libraries that I'm authorized to, right? I have them all out over here. If I had chosen a different database, SQL Server, these would be different folders, right, on down the list, so I can see all of them. I'm going to come down to the Ds. There's one here called Demo MST Data, ETA. Click on the expand next to that, get a list of all the tables or files under there, and I'm going to choose the customer master. Go ahead and click OK. Brings it in. So here are all of the fields from the customer master file. Now, I don't want all the fields, right? I know what I'm going to build. So I click on the file up here. And what I like to do is deselect them all and then come back and select just the ones that I want. I like to do it that way. However you want to do it is really up to you. So I'm going to pick customer number, name, city, and state. I'm going to grab the category out over here, and then the customer group. Again, this is my customer master, so go ahead and click OK. It changes as you see here, just like that. Now, I do have a preview button, so I can click on that to see the data that I'm looking at, so making sure I'm picking things right. I've got the right fields. Everything's looking good for me. I'm going to add a little more power here. I'm going to add a secondary table or file. Click on Add Table. I'm going to come to my same library. Doesn't have to be, but I want to choose the same library. Then I'm going to come down to this one called INV HDR, invoice header. Say OK to that. Now, because I bring it in here, it asks me how am I going to link them? How am I going to join them? Left join, right join, inner, or full. Okay, I'm going to do just a left outer. That's what I like to do. And it picks the first field, which is, kind of typical of systems. So I have the customer number, which is the first field of the customer master, but the invoice number is the series here is leading that. I don't want that. I want to choose the customer number to make it make sense. And I go ahead and click OK. And similar to the way it did with the first file, all of the fields get pulled in. Just real quick, click on that, deselect all, and I can go through and pick the ones specifically that I want. So I'm going to pick invoice number, I'll pick sales rep, and then just invoice total. Just a couple of fields here. Keep it simple. Doing this all with one hand, one finger. I did use the keyboard to give it the title, right? But everything else has been single. Say I'm connecting to Wisdom. I got my preview turned on, so I'm looking at the preview of data, right? What else do you do with queries? Well, a lot of times you set your sort order. This can be changed when you place it on a dashboard, but I'm going to go ahead and add it on here. Okay, so I'm going to look at my fields, and I'll order it by customer name. You can do more than one field, right? State, city, any of my fields that I have out here. This is fine. I'm just going to sort it here by name. Now I have it out here. So I could create new columns, right? Add a column right out over here. Takes me to a similar type of an area here where I give it a name. I select the format, if it's a number or a currency or a date. And then I have the content type, right? It's just no type or just a status, and then a list of expressions that I can use. A lot of functionality depending on the database you're connected to, right? You can come in here and do some manipulation of the data that's being displayed. You know, again, it's just like, you know, query. You're not changing the underlying data. You're just looking. But I'm not going to create one here, but I'm just going to do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the save button. Got my little sample one created here. Go ahead and hit save. Then if I come down to the S's, you'll see it right out over here. Sample one right there. Here are my actions. Edit. I want to go back into edit, create a duplicate, add tags, download it. That's where I talked about downloading CSV, and I can even delete it because, of course, I created it. I have full authority to it, but I want to leave it out there. I'm not going to play with it. Now let's go create a dashboard. So I come up to the dashboard area. I was already here once, remember? Came up with that list of dashboards that were available to me. Okay, but I'm going to create me a new one. Click on Add a Dashboard. Okay, so again, we give it a name. Sample dash, right? Like so, I get to pick a color theme if I choose. Right? Again, time refresh defaults to 5 if you want to have that out there. There are some databases and some things that you want to be concerned with, especially in the HelpSystems products. There's business hours, so if you turn that on, there's a default time range where you can go out and pick that. You're going to do any comparison with previous periods, and of course your editing and sharing rights down over here. So again, this is kind of picking some top level, high level information. I'm going ahead and save that. Again, I think of this as the header of it. This is the beginning of it. Then you're in design of a dashboard. Now, a couple buttons here that you can choose from when you put your mouse over here. There's a quick layout. If I know I'm going to have a certain number of widgets or sections within there, if you remember the ones I was showing before, each of those things were called widget. So if I choose quick layout, I can choose a starting point where it gives me the actual number of widgets there, or I can do them right from here. Now we also have this feature called adding group in addition to adding widgets. And what that allows you to do is to have different color schemes and different types of data all out here, and you can group them together. So you have the add group capabilities. I'm just going to do a simple, well, let's go ahead and do an add group. Why not? And now I'm in the add group, right? So then I can say edit the group if I wanted to. And again, pick any color scheme if I want it inherited, or if I want to pick my own, like a blue, any advanced settings, hiding this or a new title, anything like that, right? I can do that. Editing the group's widgets. Now I'm going to add the assets or the widgets, the data into my dashboard. So I come up here and click add widgets. Okay, so come down to my list, go to Insite Analytics, because that's where I created all my queries. Right, so I'll scroll down a little bit more, and there's my list of all the queries. If you remember, I had that A1 out there. Not a good name for things. I always like to point that out. Sometimes I name my things kind of odd. This time, I'm not going to go right to the sample one we created, even though it is available to me. It's not on page 1. It's, oops, page 2. We did a double click on that. Should be right there. There it is, sample 1. I'm going to come in. I'm going to pick another one here. I'm going to pick Daytona 2 should be a good one. Right. This is going to some SQL Server data. Let's pick this one here, Daytona users. There we go. Daytona users, and I'm going to go to this connection called Day 2. All right. And I'm going to pick a pie chart for that information. Color scheme will be inherited, the blue. It has one field that's numeric in this query, so I'm going to pick that for my totals. And now I have a whole bunch of total. So I'm looking at sales by users is what this particular asset or query is looking at. If I come down to my advanced settings, I have other settings I can tweak a little bit as far as the auto refresh rate being inherited, header, title, legends, labels, things like that. If it's just a bar chart, I can be stacked, etc. I have all that information. All right, go ahead and click save to that, and then it places it on the dashboard. Okay. Now, when I hover over that, you notice how it goes back into an edit mode. I'm moving my mouse here on purpose because if I wanted to add a section below or to the right, left, top, like this, right, I can easily do that. Come over here, add me a widget, come to my Insite Analytics. It opens up all my assets. Go to page 2, grab sample 1 out of Wisdom Mics, right? That's the one I want. Just do a list on this one. Right? I tell it which fields I'm going to pull in here. I could pull up to 10. My query could have had more than 10, but this is 10. So I can move them around later, or the order you click them, it'll be the order that they appear. So if I wanted to appear like this, pick city. I can pick invoice number, sales rep, and invoice total. Let me uncheck city, and I'll go ahead and pick state like that. I go to my advanced setting. Again, other types of information here. Let's say I want to put state first. Remember how I set name as my sort order? This is where I can sort it differently by state, or I can click on it by name. Go ahead and click save to what I have. And now I have 2 bits of data. Remember, I'm in a group here, right? So I can come back and I can do some editing if I want to. If you notice when I'm in editing, it says stop editing group. I can stop that, and I can come back over here and edit the group like so, or I can continue on. If I like what I'm building, go ahead and turn off the editing. Now I have my sample dash already created, right? And like I was showing you here, this particular data, I have one user over here, happens to be, if I mouse over that, you see it's Mark. If I come over here, I can turn off Mark, because he's our biggest sales rep, to kind of see how the rest are doing. Makes it a little bit more useful to me, right? A lot of times you have one category or one user that it might have the most. I could turn them off and see a little bit better representation of the various pieces. Okay. And this one does have a drill down at the query level. So when I clicked on the section there, you can see the data behind it. Right? So I clicked on let's go ahead and pick on Mark. I'll go ahead and click on Mark. It's got a lot out here, but there's all the marks. A lot of data out here, right? For Mark. But you can do that. Now I have my dashboard. I can create a shortcut from this if I wanted to. I can easily just, right, take this and make it a shortcut. So I have that. So if I want to just come in and run this, it'll ask me for my login information, right? Whether I'm connecting to the eye or to whatever format I'm connecting to, web docs or to the server itself, right? I can make that log on. It'll take me right to the dashboard. Or I can have myself come in like I did here, just come into Insight, go right to queries, something like that, and come into a particular area and then go run the dashboard. Kind of depends on the users, right? You can have multiple shortcuts on your desktop, or you can have multiple pieces out over here. Right? And then I did want to show that backup for the BRMS because we had some BRMS users out here. So I'm going to go back and run this one before I wrap up my demo. Just go ahead and click on this. I'm going to unpin the line over here. So this is showing objects not saved, backups, successful, failed, and then the last run. You see I have 7 that are failed. Here's the detail down here of the information, so I can take my status and sort on it by that status column, and I have 2 complete with error, and then here are my 7 failures, right? And I can click on it, and it's going to show me a little bit more information of what's going on behind the scenes, the date, the time, the job, the user, etc. Can see some of that, see what's happening with the failures. I have nothing active right now, which is a good thing for me. I don't want to have any of my systems being active, but if it were, it'd be here. So basically, this is pulling out BRMS status codes. So what I'd like to do is separate my complete with error and my successful. So in some of my dashboards, I may have modified this one and created a separate section that says successful and complete with errors. And then this number becomes something like, I don't know, 12 and 2, 10 and 4, right? So it tells me those two. In this case, it would be 12 and 2 because I have two complete with errors right over here, Zinger and Zuma. And you also notice there's last 12 months, that can also be changed. This one's going back 12 months. Some of our customers are more concerned with current stuff, so you can set it to last 24 hours, last week, that kind of information. So it's going out and grabbing those. Okay. And that pretty much wraps up the demo for Insite Analytics, and again, touching on the BRMS dashboards. And all you have to do to utilize Insite with BRMS is you install Insite, make your data connections, identify them as BRMS connections. You can have, I have 3, you can have 30, right? However many you have. Make your data connections, run the dashboards, and you'll see all your information. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. I'll come back to my PowerPoint here. So kind of wrapping up. Insight's a single pane of glass, like I mentioned, for HelpSystems solutions. With the deployment manager, you can keep your HelpSystems products current. Your other HelpSystems data, you'll be able to monitor all of that. You'll be able to see everything through the browser. I happen to be using Chrome here, but we support the other browsers as well. Insite Analytics, which is in Insight, adds the ability to query over your data over a variety of data sources, and the dashboards are used to present that data to the user. So there's no doubt that Insight can assist your IT department with updates to your HelpSystem products from one source. Seeing what your HelpSystem products are monitoring, Insite Analytics goes one step farther to allow the business data to be queried and shared with other users. That pretty much wraps up all I had.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Mike. Great demo. Lots of good information. Appreciate that. Before we move on to our questions, because we are at that point in our webinar where we want to take your questions. But before we do that, we have one more polling question that we are going to put up there. And then I think Ian is monitoring our questions for us. Ian?
There he is.
All right, the poll is open. You have a couple minutes to fill out that poll. Do please take a moment to fill that out. And if you have a question for Mike or Stacy, you're going to want to use the Q&A panel. That's on the right frame of your screen. Just maximize it, open it up, type in your question, and send to all panelists, and we'll answer your questions as time permits. We do have a few, Mike and Stacy, that came in as the presentation was going on. This first one was, can I try Insite Analytics before licensing it?
Absolutely. Just like all of the HelpSystem solutions, you can do an evaluation, test it, trial it before you commit to purchasing or licensing it.
Absolutely.
All right. Again, Q&A panel, right frame of the screen. Type in your question, select to send to all panelists. This next one is, can a user access a dashboard from a shortcut?
Yeah, I did mention that one during the presentation, and right at the end, I kind of saw a flash on that come up. I think is why I mentioned that. Anyway, yes, you can. Once you have your dashboard display, the URL changes. So of course you can take that URL and make a shortcut out of it. I put some of those on my desktop for demos, for one-on-one demos that I show people. I like shortcuts. Right? So much easier just to click on one thing, but absolutely the dashboard can go right to the shortcut. You don't have to go to your browser, log on to Insight, go to dashboards and run it from there. Absolutely. Good
All
question.
right, I want to direct everybody's attention to the polling panel. It's on the right frame of your screen. You have about 10 seconds to start that. If you go ahead and start it, you can finish it after the time ends, but we do want you to fill that out, so take a moment to do that. If you are done with that, go ahead and send in your questions using the Q&A panel, right frame of the screen, select to send to all panelists. This next question is, can you drill into the data?
Yeah, I showed that as well. That may have come in a little bit earlier, but yeah, at the query level, I didn't actually demo that. That's a good point. I probably should have. But they're in the query area. There's when you're using grouping function, right? You tell it you're going to group something together. I think I mentioned that, but I didn't actually show it. When you do that, you get the ability then to create drill down. So you tell it, yes, I'm going to drill into it. Then it asks you which of the fields you're going to show in that drill down. And then when the query is run from a dashboard, then the user can then click on a row and it drills into that detail. So that's a perfect question. Thank you so much. Yeah. And, everybody likes to see detail. So dashboards a lot of times are set up for aggregate data, right? Most dashboards, you have summary type data. You don't want to have tons of data out there on the first screen, right? But then if you do have some sort of aggregate data based on type codes or some sort of other code or locations or companies, you can click on it and see more data. So perfect. Yeah, good question.
All right, last chance, folks, to send in your questions. Q&A panel right from the screen. Select to send to all panelists. This next question is, can you download data into a PC file?
Yeah, right now what you can do is there is that download feature from the query side, right? So you have to go into queries in Insite Analytics and then use the actions toolbar. And it does download it it opens up right in Excel, but it downloads it as a CSV, which of course Excel is happy with. So yes, you can take it into Excel, take the query data right into Excel from the list of queries.
Okay, waiting for some more questions. While we're doing that, let me point out that there will be a replay from today's event. It's going to be available at the end of the day or tomorrow morning, depending upon how long it takes WebEx to render this video. It should be tomorrow morning at the latest. You will get an email with a link to the replay of this presentation, as well as a PDF version of the handout, the slides that Mike spoke from today. In that email also will be an evaluation form. If you can take a moment to provide your feedback to HelpSystems and to Common. We do look at eval data as they come in. It's helpful to us as we plan future events. So do take a moment to look at that email when it appears in your mailbox, either later in the day or early tomorrow. Any other questions? Last chance. Okay. Seeing none, why don't we go ahead and end this event a couple minutes early. Mike and Stacy, thank you very much for presenting today, and everybody in the audience, have a great day. Mike and Stacy, good job.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks, Stacy.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate it. Have a great day.